Awesome. Okay. Great. Hello and welcome everyone to TechSoup Courses Google Analytics 101, starring Laura Clevenger from Whole Whale. We're so glad that you've joined us. Two quick housekeeping items before we start. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat. Laura will answer questions from the chat after her presentation. And the second housekeeping item is the recording of this webinar will be available later today. So if there are any parts that you want to rewatch or review later, you can. So, and now to introduce our star for today, Laura. Laura leads the analytics department at Whole Whale and is an expert in analytics and digital impact. Whole Whale is a digital agency that leverages data and tech to increase the impact of nonprofits, building data culture one nonprofit at a time. Thanks, Laura, for joining us today. And now over to you.
Thanks, Glenn. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. All right. Welcome, everyone. We're so excited to have you here today for our Google Analytics 1.0 course. As Glenn said, my name is Laura, and I'm the Impact Whaler at Whole Whale. I've been there for about 3.5 years and lead our analytics team, like he said. And then just so you know, we also have Meredith here helping out in the back end, and she's our digital marketing whaler, so she'll be around as well. So just a little bit about Whole Whale. We're a digital agency. We work exclusively with nonprofits, and we help them leverage web data and technology to increase the impact of their organization and help them increase that online. So our main goals today, one, we want to increase your knowledge of Google Analytics. I know everyone might be at a little bit of a different place, so we will start with some basics, but stay on because we will go through some misleading metrics about how some of those basic things can be a little bit deceiving. So if you think you know, just stay on and maybe wait till that quiz. So we want to increase your basic knowledge of GA in this first course. We also want to provide a framework for how you can use this within your own organization, and we'll kind of talk about our process for that. And then how you can use that information via that process to actually make a change in your organization. So you know actually what to do with this data once you're collecting it in Google Analytics. So before we jump into the contents of the presentation, I really wanted to start with this chart, which is the process that we use when we're looking at data in Google Analytics, and is super helpful to keep in mind as you dive deeper into analytics and really want to understand how you can use this data to make a change in your organization. So we always start at the top with gathering data, making sure that you're collecting the metrics that matter to your organization, especially today where there's so much data out there, there's so much information, really honing in on the metrics that matter to you, because they're going to be a little bit different for every organization. Once you know you're collecting that data and the data that matters, it's really important to go into Google Analytics with specific questions in mind. If you don't go in with a specific question, it can be super overwhelming. There's a ton of data there, as you'll see once we poke around. So going in knowing what you're looking for can be super, super helpful. And then once you have those questions in mind, it's time to go into analytics, look at the data, start analyzing it based on what you've gathered, and then come up with some insights, some takeaways, and then from those insights, you should be able to learn and act and make some sort of change based on that information. So we'll go over this process both in this course and the 2.0. So in terms of content, starting at that top of that process, like we just went over, with Gather, we'll be talking about some basics here, including setup and your setup checklist, things like sessions, page views, users, bounce rate, exits, some basic metrics that are super important to know before you dive any deeper. Like I said, we'll talk about how those things can be a little bit deceiving, so definitely stay on for that so you don't get tricked. We'll talk about acquisition, which is just all the different ways that people can come to your website and how to look at that and analyze it in Google Analytics. And then we'll talk about my favorite thing, which is Google Analytics goals, which I think is the most important part of analytics, so I definitely want to cover it in this first course. And then after that, once we kind of talk about the basics of gathering the, the crucial data and analytics, we'll move into the kind of second part of that analytics process, which is asking the right questions and then moving through that to take some sort of action. And today we'll start with dashboards. It's the most basic way to get those set up and help you take action from your data. Okay, our getting started checklist. So if you're brand new to analytics, this is a great place to start. These are just some things you need to make sure that are set up correctly, so when you are going into analytics, you know you're looking at the right things, that everything has been set up properly. So first of all, just making sure that it's installed properly on every page of your website. Sounds super simple, but this can be, a little bit difficult sometimes. If you Google, Google has some awesome Chrome plugins, if you like using Chrome, that can help you understand if it is installed and if it's installed correctly. So definitely always start there. Staff. Who is monitoring your Google Analytics? This is also crucial, because if it's just there and it's just collecting data and no one's in charge of it, well, then it's going to be pretty hard to take advantage of the data that you're collecting. So making sure you have a point person who is in charge of making sure that all of this is set up correctly for your organization. Access, so if you are going to give multiple people in your organization access to Google Analytics, as we'll see when we're in analytics, there's multiple tiers that you could give. There's the account level, there's the view level, there's the property level. So making sure that people, who shouldn't have edit access don't, and those who should just have view access have that. So making sure that the right people have the appropriate access. Goals, like I mentioned in our previous slide, we'll talk more about those and what they are, but making sure that they are set up and defined is crucial for your organization to get the most out of analytics. Search Console, this is Google's SEO tool. We want to make sure that this is connected to Google Analytics so you can see if there are, what types of keywords people are searching for in terms of your organization, and what type of organic traffic you're bringing in, or organic traffic. We'll talk about more later exactly what that is as well. AdWords, if you have the Google AdWords grant, or if you even just have a paid AdWords account, you can connect that in analytics so you can see what that AdWords traffic is doing on your website, and from what campaign, what keyword, etc. So making sure that's connected so you're really seeing the full picture of your traffic. And then dashboards, like I also mentioned, we'll kind of walk through our dashboard bundle, making sure that that's connected to your account, and that the appropriate people are getting those sent to their emails. So they're looking at that data on a weekly, monthly, quarterly basis, whatever is appropriate. So that's a nice little checklist to start with. So I mentioned there are different levels of access. Everything related to this access and connecting AdWords can all be found in the admin section. Google has actually recently updated the visual of analytics. Google likes updating the aesthetics more than the actual functionality sometimes, which is a little frustrating. But the admin tab for some people can actually be found at the bottom left-hand side of analytics if you're popping in there. So it could be at the top, could be at the bottom. But if you click on that admin tab, you can see there's 3 different sections: account, property, view. In terms of adding new users, probably best to give them view access under here, user management there. You can add AdWords linking here under the property level. If you ever need to, just get it installed or know what your tracking number is, you can find that here under tracking info. Okay, so now to start with some basic metrics: users, sessions, and page views. So we also have a glossary here at wholewhale.com. So if you forget any of this, and like Glenn said, this is going to be recorded, so you can always go back. But we have these terms and more at our glossary at Wholewhale, so you can always check that out there as well. But these are really the 3 basic metrics that you need to understand in order to understand everything else. So let's start with sessions. Sessions are going to be individual visits to your website. And obviously you have users who can have more than one session or more than one visit to your website. And then when someone comes to your website, they don't usually just visit one page, or we hope they don't visit one page. We hope they're looking at more than that, right? So those individual pages that people are going to during that visit or during their session are going to be page views. So we like to think of this at Howell as like eating, because we love food, who doesn't? So you have in the day, you know, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So you're an individual human, you're a user. You might have 3 meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Example, like you might go to a website 3 different times within a day or within a week or whatever it is. And then within those individual meals or sessions, you're not just having a piece of toast, you might have a juice, or you might have some eggs with your toast. So those are like the different page views within a session. One thing to keep in mind, especially with users, is and we'll talk about cookies in a little bit, but a user is defined in Google Analytics by a little tracking cookie, unfortunately not the yummy, chewy, delicious kind. It's a little piece of code that follows you around on the internet, so it knows what website you've been to, etc. And that's how Google determines users. So it's not saying, oh, you, Laura. It's saying, oh, Laura's device. So that's something to keep in mind. If you're using different devices, that could potentially look like different users based on that tracking. Okay, now we have bounces and bounce rate and exits. So, like we just mentioned, a session is when someone visits your website, one visit to your website. Now let's say they just visit one page. So that would be one page view. So they come to, I'll just use Howell.com as the example. They come to Howell.com, they just look at our homepage, and then they leave. In that case, that would be not only a bounce, but also an exit. So essentially every user or every session is going to have an exit because they have to leave your website at some point. A bounce is different in that they only visit one page of your website. So it doesn't matter if they read that one page for 10 minutes and were absorbing tons of information about your organization. If they only visit one page, Google, for some crazy reason, is counting them as a bounce. And when someone is a bounce, that contributes to your bounce rate, which gives, says the user session was 0 and they spent no time on your page. We'll talk about some ways to get around that with a few little tricks we have up our sleeve, analytics tricks. But to show you an example of what wouldn't have a bounce is, let's say someone comes to Howell.com, they have, during their session, they go to the homepage and then they click on our resources tab. Well, they've now gone to 2 different pages. So Google would no longer count them as a bounce, but it's still an exit because they still left the website after that second page. Okay, so now that we went over some of these basic metrics, first, before we dive into the misleading metrics, I'll show you really quickly in Google Analytics where you can find some of these basic metrics. So when you first log in, like I'm in Howell.com Analytics, you'll be taken to this kind of main analytics home, which is a recent update that is actually pretty nice. But if you want to see some of the basic metrics we just talked about, if you click on Audience, go to Overview, this is just a great place to start in analytics. You can change your date range up here in the corner. So for example, I'm looking since August 1st through now. You can see by day, you can see by week, you can see by month, and then you can see all of those metrics that we talked about right here. So sessions, users, page views, bounce rate, so the number of people only viewing one page of your website, average session duration, which is just how long the average visit to your website is, and then average pages per session, which is the number of pages, average number of pages people visit per session as well. Okay, so let's see how Google can be a little bit tricky. So first up, users. So this is a little bit of a quiz. I'm not sure how we can, if people can type in an answer, and Glenn could tell me when the first one comes in. But here's a little situation. Let's say that you're in Google Analytics and you're interested in looking at the total number of users that came to your site from June through August. So you go into Analytics and you change that little date range that we looked at the top to go from June all the way to August, and you see 2,000 users. Great, okay. Now let's say maybe the next time you were interested in this data, you didn't select that full time frame. You went month by month. So you went, June 30th, June 1st, June 30th, July 1st, July 31st, August 1st, August 31st, and you counted the individual users for each month and then totaled them up. All of a sudden, the total's 3,700. Well, how did we suddenly gain, 1,700 users? How would that be possible? Anybody have any ideas? Cookies, right? Okay, so cookies were what we talked about earlier when we were talking about users, not the chewy kind here, but users, like I said, track unique devices over time. So if you select a larger time frame at once, it's going to give you the unique number of users. I saw a little pop up there saying someone mentioned unique users, which is correct. It's giving you those unique users. When you select month by month, it's giving you the unique users for that month. So basically it's saying there are about 1,700 people that came back or had more sessions than one. So when you're looking at a certain time frame and you're interested in users, it's best to look at the whole time frame at once instead of, let's say you're keeping these numbers in like a spreadsheet for some reason for each month. It's better to go back and look at them all at once than just adding up all of those individual numbers. Just one little way Google can be a bit tricky. So our next one is sessions. Okay, here's the quiz. A user visits wholewhale.com or nonprofit.org, goes to the homepage. They spend 5 minutes browsing 2 different pages. Then they open a second tab, a completely different tab, and browse a whole nother site for 20 minutes. Then they return to nonprofit.org tab and spend another 5 minutes browsing 2 more pages. How many sessions would be recorded and how many page views would be recorded? Any guesses? B, okay. I didn't see any comments, so we'll just move on to the next slide. B is the correct answer. 1 session, 4 page views, and 1 user. So if you remember from this here, they were on the website for 5 minutes, they looked at 2 pages and they left for 20 and they came back. So one thing to keep in mind is that session cookie lasts for 30 minutes. So as long as that tab is open, that ticker is going. So they looked at 2 pages, the tab's still open, but they came back within that 30-minute window. So Google would include that as 1 session. Now let's say they were there for 5 minutes, they looked at 2 pages, left for an hour, came back and looked at 2 more pages for 5 minutes, it would be a different case. It would be 2 separate sessions. But because it's in that 30-minute window, it's counted as 1 session, 1 user. Okay, here's another one, average session duration. A user visits nonprofit.org homepage, spends 3 minutes scrolling through the page, and then bounce, they leave the site. How long does Google record for session duration? A, 3 minutes, B, more than 3 minutes, or C, 0 minutes.
Okay. So it sounds like most people are saying C on this one.
C. They're right. Got a smart group. C is correct, and that's because of the bounce rate that we talked about earlier a few slides before. So when someone just visits 1 page of the website and they leave, Google counts that time as 0. So I'm a little bit of a running nerd. I don't know if there are any other running nerds out there. If you're not, I'm sorry, but I'm going to use a track reference. I don't know if you ever, or maybe you did a timed mile in high school or something, so we can go back to that. But when you're doing that timed mile, or you're on track, or whatever it is, you might have a coach. Well, not anymore. Maybe they have their cell phone or something else. But back in the day, they used to have stopwatch, and they would click every time you came around that track. Well, it's the same thing in Google Analytics. If you just go to one page, let's say you make it, kind of around the track, but you don't come back around for another one, it's like your coach can't click the timer. Like he doesn't know where you went. For all he knows, you could have just run off the track and gotten to the ice cream shop. So when you come back around, or you ignite another page view in Google Analytics, it's like that that timer, that stopwatch, where Google knows, okay, it took you 2 minutes to come around to the next page. So when you just have one page view, it's going to count as a bounce, and the time's going to be 0. So you guys, very smart. So a little bit more on that. Averages can be very deceiving. So because of those bounces, that average session duration that we looked at in analytics is going to include those bounces, those zeros. So Google automatically has a non-bounce segment in analytics, so you can see, your true bounce rate. So if you go in analytics and you click add segment here, you can search non-bounce. Let's say non-bounce sessions. You can apply that, and then you'll see the true bounce rate or true average session duration for your users who are actually sticking around besides that one page. So like I said, there are some ways we can get around this. The problem, is that it's underestimating that true session duration, because if someone visits one page and they spend 10 minutes there, well, they clearly got something out of your website, even though the session duration was 0. So there are a few solutions. One, look at non-bounce, like we just talked about. 2 would be event tracking, which we'll talk more about in the second course. But you could set up something called a 15-second timer. So like a little timer goes off when someone's been on the website for at least 15 seconds. It's a custom configuration that you have to set up. But once that timer goes off, it's like you coming back around the track and Google knowing, oh, okay, someone's here, someone's doing something. So you won't be counted as a bounce. You could also use goal tracking actually in the same way as that event tracking. As long as like some event goes off or a goal is triggered, Google knows that you're there and you're interacting with the site, so you won't be counted as a bounce. So this is an example of when, I'm not sure what client this was, but when we applied the 15-second timer, you could see that the bounce rate was a lot higher. We applied that 15-second timer and we saw it drop a lot, meaning, this client, they had a lot of people engaging heavily with one page of the website, and they were actually sticking around. So once we applied that 15-second timer, we see it go down. And honestly, we see this with almost every organization. So the 15-second timer, which will be addressed more in the course too, actually how to set that up, is a crucial way to lower that bounce rate and see your true average session duration. Okay, acquisition. How are people actually getting to your website? So where your traffic is coming from, this is just a little snapshot of where you're looking at those acquisition channels. Acquisition being the different ways that people are actually coming to your website. You can see some of them here. Where you actually find this, I kind of highlighted here, but we have analytics open. So you have this here, you would click on acquisition. You can click on overview, that would work to look at all of the channels. And you can see them here, or you could click all traffic channels and look at it that way. And you can see all the different ways that people are coming to your website. So before we dive into what each of those are, it's important to know the difference between source, medium, and channel. So you'll often see, like here, if we go back into analytics, you see the source medium tab here. So it's gonna look a little bit different than the channel, right? You actually see a name slash, a source slash a medium. Well, the difference is the source slash medium, a source, is going to be the origin of the traffic. So it could be like Google, or it could be Facebook, it could be a different website that's sending traffic to your website. Or Bing, if someone still uses that. It can be any sort of origin of traffic. The medium is going to be the general category of the source. So if they're coming from Google and it says Google/organic, like the first example here, that means that they're coming from Google search. Their organic traffic, they're finding you through a search platform, and it happens to be Google. So the source is specifying which one it is. In the other example, the second one, we have newsletter, which is saying it's coming from your specific newsletter, whether that's MailChimp or whatever you use, and then it's /email. Well, Google uses the medium, that general source of traffic, general type of traffic, and groups them into channels. So the channels is going to be groups of different sources with the same medium. So if we actually go back to, we can go to this slide, we can see all these different channels. So you'll see the email channel pop up. Well, that would include your newsletter /email, your maybe you have a specific end of year campaign email coming out. All those would be grouped together in that email channel. There's also paid search. Paid search is going to be specific search advertising, so things like Google AdWords, Bing, anything where you're paying for traffic. So if you're using Google AdWords, Grant, that's where that traffic would be coming through, is in that paid search. There's also direct traffic, which you might see as one of your top, and that's when people are just typing in your organization's domain or website directly into that search bar, or it's bookmarked. So, if I just open a new tab and type in wholewhale.com, that would be counted as direct traffic. Organic search, we talked a little bit about, so that's people specifically coming from a search engine like Google or Bing or Yahoo or any of the other ones people might be using. We also have referral. So referral is actually going to be people who are coming from another website. So let's say, TechSoup and Whole Whale. So TechSoup posted the course and says, Whole Whale is going to be leading this, and they hyperlink to our website. Well, then TechSoup would be the referral in this case, because people were coming from TechSoup to Whole Whale, and we'd be able to see, where these people are coming and checking out our stuff. Where are they coming from? Oh, they came from TechSoup, and we'd be able to see they came from there. Social, this is going to be social traffic that isn't paid or ad traffic. It's going to be your organic social traffic that will all fall in this channel. One thing that you shouldn't be confused about, which I think we might talk about here, or do we have an example here? Yeah, so this is a good example. You see m.facebook.com/referral. Well, it's coming through as a referral, but as soon as Google sees Facebook, Twitter, whatever it is, it puts it in the social category. So don't worry, it's not being counted twice in referral and social. It's using the specific source to place it in that social channel. A lot of times people will be confused because you see /referral and you think, wait, but how does it know to go in the social channel? And based on the settings Google has, it knows to put it in that social channel. We also have other traffic. This is what happens when Google doesn't know where to put those people. This often happens if you have campaign tagged certain URLs with some unique language that doesn't fit any of these specific channels. Google will be like, I'm not sure what this is, and so it just puts it into this thing called other. And then we also have display. So this is going to be other advertising besides search. So, things like your other display ads or maybe Facebook ads can fall into here. So again, these are just some more examples. We talked about Google /organic, organic search from Google. Another one to look out for would be Google/CPC. CPC, cost per click, so that's going to be your AdWords traffic. Okay, goals. This is the most exciting part and the most important part of Google Analytics are goals. Goals are going to be custom configured in Analytics. They aren't automatically set up, but what they are is they're key actions that users are taking on your website so you know that they have some sort of deeper engagement with your organization than the average website user. So for Whole Whale, this looks like people signing up for our email newsletter. If we know that if someone went one step further to sign up for our email, well, they're a little bit more engaged than just the average person reading resources. If someone downloaded one of our podcasts, we know they're engaging with us in a deeper way. We know if someone watched one of our Whole Whale TV videos, we know they're engaging with us in a deeper way. And typically, all of your goals are going to relate to the larger impact that you want to have in some way. So at Whole Whale, we like something called the funnel of engagement that we use, which is just a funnel, and you're moving people down that relationship path with they just know who you are. It's kind of like at the top of the funnel, and down at the bottom of that funnel is maybe they convert in some way. And so these goals kind of align with that funnel in a way. If someone is signing up for our email, then we know that they're engaging with us. Maybe they haven't converted yet, they haven't signed up for our Whole Whale U course, or they haven't signed up for our webinar, but they are interested in getting more information from us. So ideally, your goals relate to the larger impact that you're trying to have with your website and online for your organization. So you can find those here in the Conversions tab, Goals, Overview, and here you'll see all the goals that you've custom set up. But like I said, you have to custom set them up. They aren't automatically here. Google doesn't automatically know what action is more important than another for your organization. So how you would set that up is you would go to Admin, Goals under View. You'd click New Goal, and let's say you want to set up a goal like someone donates to your organization and they're taken to a donation thank you page. Well, we could set up that thank you page as the goal, so we know if someone gets to this thank you page, they've completed a transaction. So you would go Custom, Continue, and let's say Donation. There's different types of goals that you could set up. The most popular is going to be a destination-based, like someone reaches a certain page, or an event-based goal, like we'll talk more about Google Tag Manager and events in course 2, but again, these are custom configurations, actions that we track that aren't automatically tracked in Analytics. So let's say you have an important video on your website, you want to see if people are watching it. Well, you're going to need Google Tag Manager to track video plays. Once that video play is an event, we can set up the event as a goal. So it's kind of like a two-step process. But if you have a thank you page or something like that, that lets us know when someone has completed that key action, that's really the easiest way to set up a goal. So you would just say destination, continue, and usually in Google Analytics, and let's see if set up some sort of filter, web pages come in with just the URI, so everything from the slash, not wholewhale.com/thanks. It just, in Analytics, it just shows up as thanks. So let's say for some reason our thank you page, we'll say /donation thanks, and that's our thank you page. We'll say if someone reaches this equals to this, then that's a goal. So I'm not going to save that because that's not real for us, but you would just click save, and then that goal would show up in this overview tab here. And then the cool thing about goals is once you have these set up, you can see them in other areas of Analytics. So let's say right now we're looking at all goals, but we want to see, let's go and look at our email goal. And we want to know, okay, well, where are people who are signing up for our email? Where are they coming from? Well, you would click on this source/medium tab here, and all these source mediums, like we talked about a few minutes ago, will come up. So we can see, oh, wow, okay, organic traffic is important for us. We see that a lot of organic users are signing up for our email list. Well, that lets us know, now we're kind of getting into the second part of the process funnel where we're asking questions and analyzing insights and taking action. So an example of that is like, well, where are our email users coming from? That's the question, right? So then I come in and we're analyzing. I know to go here, search source/medium. Oh, Google/organic. Okay. Well, my insight is that organic traffic is an important email converter for us. And that action would be, we need to place more importance on our SEO and our organic content. Well, let's do some keyword research, as a next step to see what other keywords we could build content around to bring more organic users to our website so more people sign up for our email. So then, the key action or next step would be, okay, let's build some more content for organic users on the website. Oh, before we jump into a little tricky thing about goals and conversions, once you have these goals set up, if we go back to that acquisition tab, go to all traffic, source/medium, you can now see these goals in these reports. So the nice thing about goals is they integrate with other reports and analytics, which is super important, so you can analyze the traffic in a more meaningful way. So all the goals that you set up will be over here, and you can see what the conversion rate is for each source medium, the total number of completions, etc. So one thing to keep in mind is goal conversion rate, which is super important. We like to say at Whole Whale there are two types of metrics, the how many metrics and the how good. So the how many metrics are gonna let us know like the total number of completions, like goal completions, that's a how many, the total number there are. Well, it's important to look at the how good metric, which is gonna let us know engagement, which is, a percentage, the goal conversion rate. What's the rate of something happening? And it's important to distinguish between the two, because we could say, oh, well, we've had 1,000 email signups. And it's like, wow, well, let's look at the specific goal conversion rate. Well, if we have had 1,000 signups, but our conversion rate is 0.1%, well, okay, we need to do a little work there. But if we see, we have this many goal completions and the conversion rate is 4%, that's great. Typically, we like to see anything above 1% is usually a good conversion rate. So how that's calculated, you have goal completions on top. Something to remember, on the bottom, as your denominator, you have sessions, not users. So it's the total number of goal completions over the total number of sessions, and that equals your goal conversion rate. Personally, I wish Google would change this, because for things like email, well, as we saw earlier, we know users are coming to the website multiple times. They're having multiple sessions. Well, they're not going to sign up for email more than once, or they shouldn't be. So ultimately, if you have sessions as your denominator, that goal conversion rate is actually probably going to be a little bit low than what it actually is. So that's also just something to keep in mind. Another little tracking nuance with goals is that goals only fire once per session per goal. So if we have, all of these goals set up in our account, if someone, what would be an example? Oh, like the 75 to 100% scroll depth on story pages. Well, let's say we have all these stories about users that we want people to read, so they learn about the cause and they, are more willing to donate because they love these stories and yada yada. So it's important for us to know how far down people are scrolling and reading on that page. Well, via Google Tag Manager, you can set up an event called scroll depth tracking, which will let you see how far people are going. So now that we have that event, we set it up as a goal. Well, let's say someone does this twice in one session. They go to 2 stories and they read 100% of 2 stories. That's only going to fire one time as a goal during that session. Multiple goals can fire. So if one user came during their session and they completed all of these goals, they would all have 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. but they only fire once per session per goal. So if you're looking at like the total number of video plays for something, it's best to look at that as the event total rather than the goal total. But the goal lets us know, per session, what that engagement is. So it's useful in a different way. So a little quiz. Let's say a user comes to your site. They sign up for your email list. They donate via a splash page, and they share a piece of content on social media. How many goal completions would that be? Let's say because these things are set up as goals. How many goals would that be? Do we have any guesses, Glenn?
No guesses yet. Let's give folks maybe 10 more seconds. Any guesses on this?
Yes, 1, 3.
Okay, so we have guesses of 1 and 3.
3 is right. So they sign up for their email list, check, 1 goal. They donate via a splash page, check. We set that up as another goal. They shared a piece of content, which also is important for us, check. 3 goals, because there are 3 different goals. So they each fired 1 time. Now let's say in the second case, a user comes to your site, they sign up for your email list, they share 10 pieces of content on social media in their session. How many goals would that be?
Okay, there's a guess of 2.
Yes, that is correct. 2. You guys are quick learners. They sign up for their email, and then like we said, they only fire once per session per goal. So even though they shared 10 pieces of content, which is fantastic, it's only going to fire once in that session. So like I said, if you'd want to see the total number of shares, you would go to the event section in analytics and look at that there. Okay, so just to highlight before we dive into our final piece, which is dashboards, before we answer questions. This is the process again. So 1, gathering data, setting up the right goals that matter for your organization so we know we're looking at the things that are important for you, not just generic in analytics. 2, go in asking questions, like I did with the example of where are email users coming from, where do email signups come from. Come in with a specific question so you know what you're going to go and look for. Then you look at that data, you're analyzing it, you have some sort of takeaway or insight, and then from that insight, like I said, oh, well, I can see that a majority of our email signups are coming from organic traffic. From that insight, you should be able to take some sort of action, some priority from that data, whether it's, we spend more time on SEO or whatever it is. One way to keep up with this and an easy way to look and analyze this data is with dashboards. This is, again, something that you have to custom configure in analytics. They don't automatically appear in your account. We have a resources tab here. One thing is that I highly suggest you check out is the Google Analytics Solutions Gallery. Here, there's just tons of free resources in terms of dashboards and segments and a bunch of different things that you could apply to your account. But if you go to Google's Analytics Solutions Gallery and you type in Whole Whale, you'll see our 2017 nonprofit bundle. Well, you'd click that, and as long as you're in the right email connected to your analytics, you could import this into your analytics account. There it goes. And we have all these dashboards, and then we have a segment, a government traffic segment if you're interested in that, and these different customer reports. You can just check what you want and delete the others you don't. So let's say I just want the dashboards. Well, I'm going to select a view, Whole Whale, and create. And those will automatically be imported into your analytics account. So these are good ones to start with. And then once you get more comfortable with dashboards, you could edit them, etc. So if you click here, under customization dashboards, you'll see all of these new dashboards that we just imported. So we have a social media dashboard, which looks at social media traffic, demographics, which looks at gender and age, etc. AdWords, if you use the grant, you can look at your AdWords performance, SEO organic, mobile traffic, and then an executive overview. So let's say we want to look at our SEO/organic traffic. Well, I click on this dashboard. And what we like to do with these is we already have these widgets set up as questions. So it kind of helps you go in already with that question mindset. So here, like on this one, what are the top landing pages for organic traffic? Well, here it's going to pull in all the top pages that people are coming from Google, etc., that are finding us. And we can see, and what we like to do, just another thing to note, as I talked about the how good and the how many metrics, well, in these widgets, we always place a how good next to a how many. So we can see, well, this how to enter cheat any online voting contest has the most sessions. It's getting the most organic traffic as the top landing page, but the bounce rate maybe isn't as low as something like the Giving Tuesday article. So that lets us know that maybe the Giving Tuesday article has better engagement, which means maybe we should build more content similar to the Giving Tuesday article because it's going to bring in users who are more engaged than something like the how to win or cheat any online voting contest. But all of these dashboards will usually start with some overview metrics up here at the top and then dive into more specifics down below. Things like you can see, what devices are sending organic traffic, desktop versus mobile, where is your organic traffic coming from? This can be interesting sometimes if you think about this question, because you could say, oh, a lot of our traffic is in New York. Well, is there any specific content to New York that we could write so we could target those users, since we know that a lot of people are coming from there? So there are a lot of different things you could look at. We also like to have, how is page load time for top landing pages? And we see if there's anything that's, higher than a second or two. Okay, well, like these ones down here, well, I'm going to send those to our developer and he should check those out and make any adjustments. So we're engaging that traffic. So that's just the example of that one, but we have a bunch more. I highly suggest you go to the Solutions Gallery. You take a look at the different dashboards and kind of poke around. And also another thing to keep in mind with these dashboards is make sure to always add your goals to these dashboards when you can. If you can add them as the metric or add them just as another widget, make sure to add them to the dashboard. And you could do that by clicking Add Widget up here. Let's say email goal. You just would search for the email metric here and add it to your dashboard. So fairly easy to edit these and change them. You can always edit here with the little pencil if you want to look at a different goal or different metric, etc. So definitely, I would say start with that bundle and then download and edit best for your organization. So we have some more resources on our website. We have, the glossary we talked about. The Solutions Gallery is a great place to start. Google also has, if you are interested in even a more in-depth course or, more nitty-gritty specifically from Google, Google has an amazing Analytics Academy that's free for everyone. That's always nice to just look at as well. We also have a whole analytics section on our website with more articles going into each of these topics and more into great detail. So those are other great places to start. And now I think we have time for some questions.
Okay, great. Thanks so much, Laura. So the first question comes from Mary Lee. And Mary says that she's a total newbie to Google Analytics. And referring back to the beginning of the slides that asked, is it installed? Mary wants to know, where can I find guidance on installing Google Analytics on my website?
That's a great question. I would definitely, it's a complicated question. It really depends on your website. If you're using, I'm not sure if she's still on it and can respond, but if their website is set up on something like WordPress, there's plugins you can add, so you can just easily just add that little snippet of code. So if you are in WordPress and you search for a Google Analytics plugin, add that to WordPress, go to your tracking info, tracking code. You could just copy this code into the place on the plugin, and then it easily is installed on your website. If you're not using WordPress, it might be a little bit more difficult, and the help of a developer might be nice.
Okay, great. Thanks, Laura. The next question is, can you say a little bit more about how Google Analytics differentiates between paid social and non-paid social?
Yes. So it really depends on how you're campaign tagging that traffic. So if you're using Facebook CPC, that can come in as Facebook/CPC, similar to how Google paid traffic comes in as Google/CPC, and in which case it'll be placed into like an other advertising or a display channel. However, if you're adding custom campaign tracking to that URL, it's more than likely going to come in as other traffic, in which case you would need to go into the admin settings, and this is getting a little bit advanced, but if you have custom tagging on there and Google doesn't know where to put it from Facebook, you're going to need to go into admin settings, go to the channel settings here, click channel grouping, default channel grouping, and you can change these settings based on where you want that traffic to go. So if you want that Facebook ad traffic to go into display or other, let's say it's other advertising, you would click here and see like we made sure we added these to this channel, so we know all of our Facebook traffic specifically comes in here. We specified source medium exactly matches that campaign tagged source medium that you added to your URL. I would say that's the best way to make sure the traffic is going in the place that you want it. So again, if it's paid, it's going to be CPC or any other tagging you may have added to that URL. If it's organic traffic, it's always going to come in as /referral.
Okay, great. Thanks, Laura, for that. The next question is, how do you get around the limit to the number of goals you can create per view?
This is someone who knows a little bit about analytics, and that's a very good question. So we didn't talk about this, but you can only have 20 goals per view in Google Analytics, which is good and bad. One, you shouldn't have more than 20 goals. That's a lot of actions that are very important for your organization, and I would say try and narrow it down. However, if you're inheriting an account that might have old goals that you don't need anymore, or people accidentally created goals, and once you create a goal, you can't delete it. So when you reach that 20, it's a little painful. So that's a very good question. What I would suggest, if you are in that situation, what you can do, it's not ideal, but you can edit the goal. So in analytics, let's say we didn't, we ran out of, see if we only have 4 left. Once your account gets a little old, you can run out. Let's say we don't need this one anymore, or it's no longer useful, this one that's off. Well, you can go in and you can edit each section to be the new thing. You can give it a new name. You can change it to be destination or whatever it is. What I would do, though, is once you have changed it, go back to that audience tab, click overview, and make a note. Create an annotation here. Say, on December 5th, changed email goal to RFP goal, or whatever it is. So people know if they're looking at that goal, you turn it back on, well, it's from this date forward is when the new goal is. That's kind of our workaround.
That's a pretty impressive workaround. Thanks for that. And then the final question is, two more questions. The second to last question is, does Whole Whale make new bundles each year?
We have made new bundles every other year so far. So we have, you'll see our Ultimate Nonprofit Dashboard, that was in 2015. Then we updated it for 2017. So 2017 is our most up-to-date one, but expect that to, update probably next year or the year after. So we try and keep them updated when there's changes to analytics.
Okay, great. And then we're going to do a quick 2-for-1 on on the last two questions. The one is from Larry, and Larry asks, can you transfer a Google Analytics identification number from one Google account to another? And then the other question is from Michelle. Michelle asks, said that she's having trouble understanding how to get a view with historical data in it. Can I only see history in raw data view because views only collect data from time of creation?
Yes, views, yeah. So Larry, maybe clarify a little bit more exactly what you mean. In terms of the new views, she's absolutely right. You can only, once you create a new view in analytics or a new account, data starts collecting from that day forward. So if you're looking for anything historical, like let's say you, let's say you have multiple websites that work together in some way. Like you have your main website, and let's say you have a campaign website for something that you use yearly or whatever it is. And you want to create cross-domain tracking so you can see tracking across both websites. You might want to create a new view for that. We didn't get into cross-domain tracking. That's a little bit more advanced, but you can track behavior across websites if you wish. And say you create a new view for that. Well, that's going to start from that day forward that you create it. However, I wouldn't delete that original view with just the first website because that's where you're going to find all of your historical data. So unfortunately, if you, for some reason, you wanted to create a new view for something, you might have to add up numbers by going back to the previous view. But ideally, just once you have a view with historical data, change the name, change the view name to historical or whatever it is, but don't delete it because yeah, if in the new view, it's just going to be from that day forward. So it's super important to have all of that. That reminds me, one thing we did not talk about, which is also important when you're setting up your account for that historical data, because let's say you're in your main view and oops, you accidentally deleted it for 2 days, or oops, you accidentally created a filter that deleted data. Always, always, always have a backup view. So in admin, once you have your account set up, you can always go to view, create new view. Like you can see here, we have a backup. This backup view has no filters. We don't remove internal traffic. We don't remove spam traffic. Everything is there. It's just all the data in one place. So if there's ever an oops, I messed something up, you have that backup view with data. In terms of Larry's question, I'm not exactly sure what he means about switching accounts. Did he add any clarification?
No further clarification.
Okay, well, can you read the question again?
Sure. It's Larry asked, can you transfer a Google Analytics identification number from one Google account to another?
You can't. So you can't transfer. I'll answer it as best as I think he's asking for. You can't transfer that data to another one. Let's say you're in this account. You can't add this data to another account. Google now gives you the opportunity to duplicate a view or duplicate a property. So you could create like a copy of one that already exists, but not a whole new account. You can't transfer that data to another account. If for some reason you wanted to add another account, you could always have 2 analytics codes on your website, but there's no transferring data between accounts as far as I'm familiar with. Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, thanks so much, Laura, for your presentation today. That was really great, and thank you everyone for joining Google Analytics 101 today. A reminder on a couple of things. One is next week on Wednesday, on the 13th, we will have Google Analytics 201, and we'll send out the information about that in a reminder email after this course is over. But if you would like to learn more about Google Analytics, George, Laura's colleague, will be giving the 201 live webinar course, and it should be awesome, and we encourage you to sign up for that. The second thing is that the recording for the 101 class will be available later today. So if there's anything that you want to watch again or review, it'll be available in a few hours in the same place that you're in right now. So And then once again, we also encourage you to check out TechSoup.org. We have, of course, the products that many people know about, but also check out the services, community, and resources section on our website. There's a lot of things that can be helpful to you in your use of technology in your nonprofit. So once again, we'd like to thank Laura. Thank you, Laura, so much for your presentation today.
Yeah, and then really quickly, if anybody has any follow-up questions later, or we didn't get to something that you thought would be addressed here, we have a contact us on our HOEL website. So feel free to shoot us an email and with follow-up saying you're on the webinar and you have a follow-up question or something you didn't think of now, and I'm more than happy to answer. So yeah.
Okay, fantastic. And thanks Laura for that offer. And then one last reminder: there's an evaluation at the bottom below where you're watching the webinar right now. And we would really appreciate it if you fill out the survey. We're constantly trying to improve TechSoup courses, and your feedback is absolutely vital in helping us make courses that are more effective for you and other nonprofits. So once again, thank you everyone for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you at future TechSoup courses. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Meredith. Thank you, Susan, on the back end for all the coordination with everything. We'll see you soon on TechSoup courses.